The iPhone 6s and 6s Plus came out a year after the iPhone 6 in 2015 and basically fixed all the issues with the previous phone while adding some key additions like faster speeds and a better camera. 6 months later, the iPhone SE came out. It was essentially the same as the 6s, but was in the smaller body of the iPhone 5s. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're taking a look at the iPhone SE and the iPhone 6s. How did they hold up and how did they compare? Despite how they look from the outside, these phones are actually very similar. They hold basically the same rear cameras and technical specs, and I'd say if you're torn on which one to buy, if you're wanting to buy one of them, the main factor to consider is the size. And if you came into this wondering if you should buy them at all, I'd say yes and no. They are the oldest iPhones supported on iOS 13, which means they may not get iOS 14. Although personally, I think they will, but we'll see. If you're buying used, and you are with these phones, probably, you do need to watch out for battery life, as a lot of these older phones have toast batteries because they're old. They are replaceable through Apple, but it can be a pain. The reason to get one of these phones, though, if you are considering it, is if you're on a strict budget, and that's a totally fair reason. But for most people, I would recommend getting the iPhone 8 or something newer, as it'll last you a lot longer and will be a more pleasant experience. But the iPhone SE for under $100 on eBay.com is definitely worth it, and the iPhone 6s isn't much more, and so that's also kind of worth it. Same goes for the 6s Plus. All these phones are actually a pretty darn good deal if you're buying used online. Just make sure you don't get the 16GB model because, well, that's just not enough space for almost anybody. So yes, the phones are worth buying if you're on a strict budget, but for most people I would say try to get something newer if you can, just because it's going to last longer and do you better in the long run. But with that, let's back up here and take a closer look at the iPhone SE and the iPhone 6s. The iPhone 6s and 6s Plus came out in 2015 and looked almost identical to the iPhone 6, but was much more durable. The 6s essentially improved on everything over the iPhone 6, and we'll get to that. But in early 2016, the iPhone SE came out. A lot of people liked smaller phones and weren't ready to make the jump to the bigger size, which is where the SE came in. It was the 6s, but smaller and cheaper, which is a pretty decent combination. Neither the 6s or SE are being sold by Apple anymore, and generally speaking, most carriers don't have them anymore either. The phones are definitely aging, but they do run iOS 13, and for me at least seem to run pretty darn well. Let's go over the differences of these two phones, and then we'll talk similarities. The iPhone 6s is bigger than the SE, shocker. The SE has a 4-inch display, while the 6s has a 4.7-inch display, and the 6s Plus has a 5.5-inch display. Keep in mind, this here is not a 6s Plus, but an iPhone 6 Plus. I don't have a 6s Plus, but I mean, it's really not that much different than the 6s. The SE and smaller 6s have the same pixel density, so the screens look about the same, but the 6s Plus does have more pixels per inch, and therefore is a little bit crispier. Not enough to really be too noticeable for most people, I'd say, but there is a difference. The SE is pretty small compared to most phones nowadays, but there is a group of people that appeals to. Not me, but some people. Even the normal 6s feels a little bit small compared to at least the phone I use, although it does have the same footprint as the smaller iPhone 11 Pro, so it's definitely not too small. It comes down to personal preference. I know of people who absolutely refuse to use a bigger phone than the iPhone SE, and while I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that in a couple years when the SE is unsupported, at the moment they're doing just fine on iOS 13. Other differences, well, the design of course. The 6s looks like the iPhone 6 and the SE looks like the 5s. Both phones have physical home buttons, but the iPhone 6s actually has 2nd generation Touch ID as opposed to 1st gen on the SE. It is way faster and definitely noticeable, but I mean, if you're on an SE, it's fine. Still a step above a passcode, but yeah, the 6s is quicker when it comes to unlocking the phone. Another thing that's not a big deal, but is still a deal, if that's a phrase at all, is the haptics, or in other words, vibrations. The SE uses the older vibration motor that was in the iPhone 6. It vibrates pretty harshly, as opposed to the 6s, which is a lot more subtle and a lot more pleasant feeling, at least to me. It's an improvement, but one that really doesn't matter for most people. Just worth mentioning because it is one of the few differences between these two phones. 3D Touch, may it rest in peace, is on the iPhone 6s. Unfortunately, a lot of its functionality was kind of made more obsolete with iOS 13, given that it doesn't have many special capabilities anymore, but it is there. Basically, the phone can sense how hard you're pressing on the screen, and then it can give you more options depending on what you're doing. Again, with iOS 13, it doesn't really matter anymore, but it is still cool to have. Battery life on these phones probably isn't going to be very good. The 6S Plus should be the clear winner, given that the battery is just way bigger compared to these phones, but the 6S and SE should have pretty similar performance. Given the age of these phones, even if you have a brand new battery in there, you're probably going to be wanting to keep a charger nearby. Could you last the day? Possibly, but it's just an unfortunate reality with smaller phones and smaller batteries. Although the 6S Plus, again, not too bad. Cameras on the rear of the phones are exactly the same, although the 6S Plus does have optical image stabilization. Does that matter? Not really. It's definitely not worth buying the 6S Plus over the 6S just for the optical image stabilization. I mean, the 7 Plus has 2 camera lenses, and that's the reason to buy the 7 Plus, but really the 6S Plus doesn't have too many improvements over the 6S, and so if you're torn between the two of those phones, just buy the one that fits better in your hand, or the one that makes the most sense for your budget. The only other main difference I can think of between these two phones is the selfie cameras. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything here, and I'm sure there'll be hundreds of comments letting me know if I do forget something. But yeah, the selfie camera, and it's not very good on either of these phones, although definitely better on the 6S, not the SE. It's 1.2 megapixels on the iPhone SE and 5 megapixels on the iPhone 6S. Neither of these phones take good selfies, but the 6S does do a much better job than the SE, as you can see here. Odds are selfies aren't too important to you, but if they are, then you're going to want to go up to, at minimum, the iPhone 7, as that's when they beefed up the selfie camera to 7 megapixels, so that's something worth noting. Moving to similarities, let's talk about that rear camera. All phones have one single 12 megapixel sensor that can film video in up to 4K at 30 frames per second. Pictures with the phones look not bad. Not great, but better than the iPhone 6, and I would say these are good enough. Definitely not to iPhone 11 level, but considering that these can be found for under $100, it's really tough to complain. Of course, all these pictures were taken in good lighting conditions outside. If you went inside or took pictures at night, they wouldn't look nearly as good. Overall though, I would say the camera performs absolutely fine nowadays. Video is also pretty decent, and 4K at 30 makes a huge difference over just 1080p. Thanks to YouTube compression and whatnot, it's going to be really tough to see what the quality of the video actually looks like, but trust me when I say it's not bad at all. Moving past the cameras, it's time to talk tech specs, which is easily the most entertaining subject out there. All the phones have the Apple A9 chipset and 2 GB of RAM, and this results in not only iOS 13 support, but actually pretty decent performance. I haven't had too many issues personally, and while I don't use these phones on the regular, obviously, from my limited experience, they feel fast and can do pretty much anything. That's what Apple is good at, long-term support. These phones are old, but they can still do the vast majority of things the iPhone 11 Pro can do. Will the phones get iOS 14? Personally, I think so, yeah. This is obviously not guaranteed, of course, but there's a good reason to think that they might. Apple kind of broke their pattern with iOS 13. The 5S and 6 were dropped support for at the same time, which is unusual, but makes sense given that the iPhone 6 really isn't that much better than the iPhone 5S in terms of speed. The SE and 6S are both pretty decent and have 2 GB of RAM, which is the same as the smaller iPhone 7 and iPhone 8, so I think they'll stick around for another year. Regardless, you are guaranteed support to at least September of 2020, and if they do get that extra year, that's support until the September of 2021. Whichever way it goes, under $100 for that kind of level of support is really good value. If you're on a budget, the iPhone SE and the 6S are some of the best phones you can buy. You're getting the modern iOS experience. It may be a bit of an older form factor, but one that is still totally usable right now, and I mean, that price, you just can't beat that price. Which should you get if you're torn between the 6S, 6S Plus, and the iPhone SE? It's really up to you. I'd say size is the biggest factor, figure out which one fits best in your hand and go for that one. I'd say generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend the 6S Plus, as for not a lot more money, you can get like a smaller iPhone 7 and that's going to be a better phone, but it's really up to you at the end of the day. The 6S and iPhone SE hold up really well right now, and huge props for Apple future-proofing them essentially. And with that, I think I'm pretty much done here. Do you own the iPhone SE or iPhone 6S? How are they working for you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this video interesting or helpful, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason, and make sure you join the new community Discord. We're having a good time over there talking tech and having a good time. I really don't know what to say here. I just kind of started and I'm still going for some reason. Join the Discord. That's all I'm really trying to say. Yeah, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.